Hello, guys. We are here. I'll just mention a quick disclaimer that I have just got back from a little walk with my dog, Springer Spaniel. So if you hear, and she's got a few squeaky toys. So if you hear squeakiness in the background, then it's most likely her. Apologies for that image of Newcastle upon Tyne. I live basically in a Newcastle United oriented household, so I did not decide that, unfortunately. But yeah, it's Friday evening. Sorry that there hasn't really been any videos recently. I applaud all the other Sunderland YouTubers who have done videos, but quite frankly, I haven't had the motivation to do it because there's been barely anything happening. And according to this, I've only gone live for about 10 seconds, which is a bit weird. Anyone who's watching, is the sound and the picture okay? It looks okay on my end, but we'll see whether whether it transpires that it is okay. But yeah, no, like I said, I applaud the other Southern YouTubers for doing their respective videos because, quite frankly, I just couldn't be bothered. And I know that sounds really, really crap, but like, there's barely been any. What's happened, Apart, I will get into this little mini statement that KLD's put out today or this afternoon. But in general, barely anything seems to have gone on. I mean, I know there will be things that have gone on behind the scenes, but in an official category, barely anything has happened really, whether it be in the way of a head coach or transfers or whatever else has gone on. So yeah, how are you all doing anyway? We've got 18 people. Okay, now 21 people watching. But yes, we will get into it. We'll get into the mini statement, and I'm just going to talk about the little rumours about Southampton's potential interest in Clark, the potential interest, reported interest in Jobe Bellingham, and we'll just go along that. We'll just wing it. I'm not going to put a timeline on how long this is going to be because if I say half an hour, you know what my gob, I'll end up be talking for about 45 minutes to an hour. So we shall see. Anyway, first comment, BDS. I'll start with your funny comment. It's funny that the Mags have released training gear in red and white. Yeah, I have to admit that does amuse me. And it's not even a photoshopped image, I think. Apparently it's from the Metro Centre's own Facebook page, which makes it quite hilarious. But yeah, we're not in a position too much to laugh at them, unfortunately, really, are we? Oliver 29 says, hello there. Anyone knows me, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan of the original 6 films, not the sequels so much. But yeah, hopefully you're doing all right, Oliver. And BDS says, I'm glad he spoke. Fans wanted him to say something. He did, and people still complain. Yeah, I didn't used to think that about our fans, but I'm starting to feel like there's not the majority mind, but there's a minority of people who I think aren't happy unless they're complaining about something. But I want to stress that doesn't pertain to the majority because a lot of people do want what's best for the club, but being honest, I found the negativity really, really draining, which I do get it. We're not going to be happy in roses, are we? We've just finished 16th in the championship. That's not a good enough season, really. But yeah, we'll see with that one. But yeah, hopefully you guys are okay. So for those of you who haven't got social media or who have been too busy or one way or another are unaware of what's happened, it's not much, but it's better than nothing. KLD basically put out a statement, a mini statement, which is I've screenshotted, I've screenshotted it on my phone, so I'll be able to quickly read it out for you. It's not much, but I'm going to try and at least get potential meanings behind it. So this was posted from the club. I think it was within the last 2 hours. Let's see. Here we go. So right, first of all, to get Jack's comment, I sort of abandoned football Twitter the last few years, but trying to get into it a bit more. So here I am. I feel like the silence was deliberate, almost as if the club want a subtle reset. Maybe there's a good shout for that. Carl Lawson, hey Michael, hi mate, how are you doing? Hopefully you're okay. Right. So the little mini statement from KLD reads as follows. It's only 3 paragraphs, but here it is. We hope to appoint the next head coach of our great club imminently as we enter the final stages of the recruitment process. We appreciate the patience and support that we've received from you throughout the summer, and our aim has always been to ensure that the right candidate is appointed. That outcome remains our focus. On and off the field, we have learned from last season when we fell short of all our expectations. We are hungry and ambitious for success and determined to ensure we all enjoy a great 2024-25 season together, Kyle Louis-Dreyfus. So that's, and so you know that I'm not like, oh, hang on, you don't want to see the funny images of ants on my phone. There you go. That's the statement right there. It was Sunderland's official Twitter. I don't know whether they put it on their official website. Someone might have to tell me in the comments, but I can't imagine they would have done too much. But yeah, so what do I think of it? And by the way, let me know, guys, in the comments what you guys think of this supposed statement. Right, I'm going to try and literally go through the paragraphs and express my thoughts as I go along. I mean, the first one really, there's nothing really to analyse. We hope to appoint the next head. Basically, saying he's hoping to appoint the next head coach imminently. We're apparently in the final stages of the recruitment process. What does final stages mean here? Have we narrowed it down to 1 or 2 candidates? Have we narrowed it down to final interviews? Have we narrowed it down to the fact we have got one person and they've agreed to come? And in which case, is it contract disputes? Is it like accommodation, living arrangements? What's those things? Obviously, they are quite vague. But again, final stage of recruitment process. That's absolutely fair enough. Oliver 29 says 3 candidates. I think if I will point out because Alan Nixon. Don't particularly believe in myself, but Alan Nixon apparently put out that originally it was meant to be Pascal Jansen. I keep wanting to say Pedro Pascal for some reason, but Pascal Jansen, can't even talk. Pascal Jansen. Then we had Dave Challinor and what was the last one? Stephen Robinson. That apparently were the 3 last candidates to take over at Sunderland, and it's since been confirmed, I think, by James Copley of the Sunderland Echo. Great lad, by the way. He said that apparently Challinor and Robinson are pretty much wide of the mark. They're not even in contention with Sunderland. And that's probably for the best. Challinor, I think, possibly could have done well. I think I could sort of kind of get the appointment, even though I would have been I would have been quite underwhelmed, I'm not going to lie. But Robinson, I think I would have wanted to stay well clear. I wouldn't, and even as someone who likes to be more glass half full, I would not have got behind that appointment. That just wouldn't have been good enough. But anyway, I suspect in terms of candidates, it's in my own opinion, I think it'll be down to the fact we've now narrowed it down to either 2 people or 3 people, and we're pretty much deciding which one to go with. Right, the second paragraph. We appreciate the patience and support. Yada 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 yada. Our aim is to ensure the right candidate is appointed. That outcome remains our focus. I should hope it is. I should hope it is. Carl says, don't Robinson and Challinor have clubs? Yes, they do. Robinson, apparently, I think, again, according to Alan Nixon, I might be wrong here, but apparently the compensation was like 250,000, so it wasn't that much. And Challinor, yeah. I mean, look, to be fair, from Stockport's point of view, Challinor's obviously got promotions from from National League to League 2, and then one with Hartlepool, one with Stockport, and now another one with Stockport from League 2 to League 1. But and I mean this with the greatest of respect to clubs like Hartlepool and Stockport, managing Sunderland is a completely different step up. It's a completely different kettle of fish altogether. And I think, with all due respect, we are considerably gigantically bigger than those 2 clubs. And look, of course, if he'd come here, he might have done well. We have absolutely no idea how that would have turned out. But maybe for his sake, he might be better off staying at Stockport another year. As for Robinson, apparently he's got St Mirren in Europe for the first time in God knows how many years. But with all due respect, again, in the SPL, if you're finishing in the top 3 or top 4, you're going to get Europe, aren't you? So it's, take of that what you want to. But I do get you, but they do have clubs. Chester Leicester, hey mate, Leicester fan. And very quickly, guys, for those of you who want to maybe put up with my dulcet tones much more, from about, I think it's 7:30ish, maybe a little onwards, I'm going on Ant's Leicester fan channel. Leicester fan, who is obviously I've done the championship panel show with throughout the whole of the last season. We're basically just going to do a live watch along or a live waffle crap of the England game, really, because that's what we're good at. Hopefully my internet doesn't play tits up, though, because last night it didn't go particularly well. Not to the level it usually does. But hi, Chester, mate. Hope you're okay. Right, so the last paragraph. On and off the field, this is the key bit. We have learned from last season when we fell short of all of our expectations. Now, this is the course that a lot of people are probably going to really analyse and really go for. Now, I would hope they've learned from their mistakes, because if they haven't, then put it this way, they're going to find themselves most people wanting them out. Hello, Colin, by the way. Hopefully you're okay. But you guys know that I have not been the biggest fan of KLD since he's come to the club, if I'm honest. I think he has gone down too much of the Ellis Short route, where I think he's been too distant and hasn't said enough. And I know sometimes people say, well, what do you want him to say? Sometimes little statements like this, whether you take it for gospel or not, it's up to you. But for me, little things like this, regardless of my opinion on KLD, make a difference. They make a difference in the eyes of some supporters. Some, of course, won't be placated by this, which is fair enough. But some of them, this goes a long way. But as for the learned from last season bit, Robert Forster, hey, mate. Jansen for me, but I will be happy with Rossignol. I'll get onto them too in a bit, because I think apparently there's been suggestions there, the 2 final candidates. But as far as whether we've learned from last season, I hope they have done, because last season in so many ways, especially in 2024, has been catastrophic so far. The Black Cats bar situation, and this is on Speakman just as much as KLD, to be fair, not addressing certain issues in the squad in the January window. But this, I've said before, yeah, Oliver fell short is a bit of an understatement, isn't it? Yeah, we shall see. So look, Carlson, the biggest no-no was a Black Cat bar fiasco, mate. Yep, absolutely. And that is unforgivable for a lot of people, and I can't blame them for that. But the point was, whether they have learned from their mistakes, time will tell. Do I believe they have at the moment? Jury's out. I need to find out what this recruitment window's like. I need to find out what the head coach is like, and I need to find out when we're going for players, are we just going for more youngsters, or are we going for players with a bit more experience? Not necessarily in terms of age, but in terms of games played. So someone who could be 24, 25, but someone who's played 100 championship games or something like that at that stage. And I mean, like, obviously competitively, not just like 100 5-minute appearances off the bench for different clubs, because obviously that can be quite different. But hi, Patrick. Hope you're well as well. So whether they have, do I believe it at the moment? Personally, no. But I want to be proven wrong on that. Hopefully they do prove me wrong on that. And I've said it before. I said it at the end of the Sheffield Wednesday game. This summer is regime defining for KLD Dreyfus and Christian Speakman. It's huge for them too. It's massive. If they get this wrong, and I'll make this clear, if they get this wrong, then they've got nowhere to hide whatsoever. Nowhere whatsoever to hide. But yeah, so whether they have learned, we'll wait and see. And the last bit, we are hungry. Well, it's just the cliched stuff. We're hungry and ambitious for success and determined to ensure we all enjoy a great 24-25 season together. What does that entail? For me, a great 24-25 season is promotion back to the Premier League. But again, we will see on that. So I think I've caught up with pretty much all the comments. Oh, well, as I say that, Jack's just commented again. Thanks very much, mate. Okay, Jim has as well. Wow, okay. As soon as I say I've caught up with the comments, quite a few people come into it. Jack says, I think for me, a key thing is David Bruce coming in as CBO. A very shrewd businessman and will bring up much needed revenue to the club and a grown up way of running it, in contrary to what we have seen. Yeah, I think that's a very, very big point. I think David Bruce, I mean, look, obviously, all I've seen heard of him is his first interview. And of course, on the club, he's going to paint himself the best light. But I was pretty happy with what I heard from him. We'll see. We've already started to shift towards getting more revenue in for the club, such as like the Hummel deal, which a lot of supporters have been asking for. Me personally, I'm more bothered about how the team in the kits do rather than the kits. But the good kits, having a good kit itself is massive. Like, there's so many opportunities over the last few years where Sunderland commercially have missed out on a lot of money, like such as getting shirts available for Father's Day, for instance. Think how much money you could make off that. Now, I do appreciate it might be down to existing deals that we couldn't get out of until the deals ran out. It could be very well down to that. But what I would say is, hopefully we are going to start actually progressing in the right direction when it comes to stuff like that. But there's absolutely no doubt that we have needed that for so long. It's not just a recent thing off the pitch. It's been catastrophically bad for the last few years off the pitch, and hopefully it's starting to improve to a good level, obviously. Right, Jim Nesbitt. Hello, Jim. Hi, Michael. I think SCFC saw Still as the man they wanted. He dragged things out to maximise his options, then dumped us when he got a better offer. He's a slicker version of Michael Beale. No loss. I'm glad someone's mentioned that about Will Still, because I don't think he's got enough criticism from Sunderland fans, if I'm being totally honest. Look, should Sunderland have had plan B? Yes, absolutely. And I hope that this last week or so, pretty much since he came out a week ago, that Will Still's basically turned his back on Sunderland and gone and had his head turned by Lens, apparently. I would say that Will Still's well within his right to do that. And I do believe that Sunderland, I'm hoping they had a plan B. If they didn't and they put all their eggs in the Will Still basket and didn't think in case he said no, then that's very naive from Sunderland's perspective. What I would say, though, is I think with Will Still, it is... So let's pull this a bit. Yeah, Jim Nesbitt still is a gamer. He played us. Yep, absolutely. Completely agree. Jackson still played himself. Lens will not be a better prospect than Reams, in my opinion. Well, apparently Lens are in a pretty crap state financially. I might be wrong there. Someone please correct me. I'm not saying that for definite because I don't know. But I would say that when it comes to Will Still, I have no doubt that he has every right to ask for... Oh, suppose for a bit. I have no doubt he has every right to ask for better conditions. I've got no doubt that he has every right to want the best deal for himself to give him the best chance to succeed. That isn't what I have a problem with. What I had a problem with, and there's a few things, I actually reckon that if you're gonna... The thing is, right, he hasn't. What's he done in his career to warrant being picky towards the Sunderland job? In my opinion, he doesn't really have it. He hasn't really done enough. I know he's got Lens into mid-table, and he's done well with clubs that are apparently lower down divisions of the Belgian leagues and so on. But with all due respect, though, Sunderland are still massive, mate. And I don't like the fact that Will Still. I don't like the fact that Will Still was being so picky about coming to Sunderland, allegedly agrees a deal with the club, and then lets his head get turned by Lens. I know Harry says Lens have European football, to be fair. I get that. But again, if we're just... and this isn't a dig at Harry. I've said this on Twitter as well. If we're basing it just... well, in private. If we're basing it just off a team having European football, then he should be going to Hearts over Sunderland. Or Hearts or whichever team has finished third in the SPL. But I do take your point. Look, Lens will be attractive to him because of that. It just flies in the face of, apparently he wants to manage in England. Well, that's been a load of bollocks then, because he's clearly then just gone somewhere else in France. And I know things can change. I know he can change his mind. But to me, I just don't like the fact that he has basically strung us along, really, and then just basically he's a ginger Alex Neil. That's basically what I've called him. He's given me Alex Neil vibes, and I just don't like that at all. I think he is not bigger than Sunderland, and I don't know if he's got this idea in his head that he is. But if he's being funny about it, then I'm not sure I want him. Watch me saying that, and then he's going to be appointed now. But it looks all but set that he's going to Lens. I just think, in my opinion, we should be having someone who, while competent, is honoured to be here and actually wants to be here. So yeah, Will Still, to be honest, screw him. I'm really not bothered about Will Still at this point. Jack says he definitely thinks that of himself. He is believing his own hype. If he falls down that rabbit hole, let's put it this to go full Matrix here. If he's going down that rabbit hole, he will quickly find that it's crap at the bottom. He needs to, I would say, yeah. So let's just say that. And Jim, I agree with you what you've just said here. I said he would jump ship quicker than Alex Neil. Didn't think it would be this fast. Oh, mate, I love that. That's comment of the stream so far for me. No, for me, I think while Sunderland, I think, are taking much longer than really what should be deemed acceptable, I do think I think the delay has definitely been down to the Will Still side of things. I don't think it's been down to... But it might come, in my opinion, by the way, I don't know that for a fact. But for me, I think that at the end of the day, Will Still's had long enough to try to decide to come here, and he shouldn't need persuading, really. Someone put in one of the forums that I actually thought was bang on. He shouldn't be picky about coming here. He should be ready to sign on the dotted line to come here straight away. Harry says, in my opinion, the delay is down to KLD and Speakman trying to please both Dodds by keeping him in the picture whilst trying to negotiate the new man bringing their own staff. That's a fair point, mind. If it does, but the thing I would say, first of all, I agree with you. I think if Dodds being there is getting in the way of getting better coaches, then that needs to be looked at and reviewed. But what I would say is, if you believe that Will Still had apparently agreed a deal with Sunderland, that was only 2 weeks ago this coming Sunday. I'm not being funny though. And this isn't obviously to Harry. This is just generally like, people can't tell me that issue of staffing wouldn't have come up until the very end. Like, that must have been known to Still across negotiations long before a couple of weeks ago. So me personally, I'm not sure I buy that. But again, I could be wrong. Right, sorry guys, I've made you've walked me waffle long enough. Richie Stubbs, hi mate, glad you're back. As you always talk a lot of sense. Thanks very much. I'm glad someone does at least. But thanks to everyone who is watching, by the way. It is appreciated. Let's have a look. Steve Mon. It's a massive summer for this club, biggest in my lifetime, supporting Sunderland since 1969. We do often say that, don't we, how big summers are. But I think for this particular regime, this summer is, we can't overstate how crucial it is. Kenneth Devine. What a name, by the way. I think Pascal would be a great fit. What do you think? Love your content, mate, especially when you're with Sean. Yeah, me and Sean have been, well, we did say after the Sheffield Wednesday game we were going to do a longer video. Let me know in the comments on Fans React. Would you want me and Sean to do maybe like an hour-long video just going through the season, talking through the head coach stuff and talking through, rumoured signings and all departures and stuff like that? Let me know if you're actually up for that. If you are, then fair play to you. Paul Robinson, it was funny seeing a new shirt for the Scum, a reskin of our League One shirt. Yeah, I did see that. Ian Wilson, Michael, have you got something to tell us? Photo of you nowhere on your wall. Will not be number one target. Yes, yeah. Well, let's just say I live in a Newcastle household, Ian, and I did not choose that, unfortunately. I wouldn't, I don't really want to be, I want to be distanced from the dark side as much as possible. Will not be number one target, another yes man on the way. We will find that out, won't we? If it is, then all the stick they get is warranted. David Phillips, I expect an unknown manager, but to take over 100 days is just ridiculous. We're missing out signing so many players who are currently going on free because we're so slow to get a manager in. The problem I have with I don't mind, what's the word? I don't mind taking a bit longer as long as you get the right head coach in. But the problem that Sunderland have put themselves in now is because they've took so long to get somebody in, they're at the point where someone needs to be great almost, or at least very, very good to end up coming in to make it feel like that wait was worth, pardon me, that wait was worth it for a lot of people. And if they don't do that, then essentially these last few weeks could have been viewed as a wasted time. But I do agree that I think the head coach obviously doesn't decide the signings at the club. I do think people need to remember that. But the other argument is, and I agree with it, is that you've actually got players coming in want to know who they're going to play for, don't they? Because the head coach is the one the players are going to see every day on the training pitch and are the ones that they're going to have the closest relationship with or most frequent contact with. So we definitely need to get someone sorted in. I said the very latest that we should have somebody in is by the start of the Euros. Now, that's in 6 days' time. If we don't have somebody appointed in before the start of the Euros, or at least everything about everything sorted before the start of the Euros, then that isn't good enough. Truthfully, it's probably not good enough for it dragged on this long, but it's definitely not good enough if we go into the Euros and it still hasn't been sorted. Jim Nesbitt says a jump ship quicker than Alex Neil. Yeah, I still love that. NB Sports Media, hello, mate. New manager, head coach should bring in their staff. And for the statement from KLD, I feel like it'll be a manager over the weekend unless there's another twist ahead. I hope so. We'll wait and find out. Jack says, seems fans are almost unanimous with Pascal. Sorry, Pascal would be a real statement almost, in my opinion. James Bit says, I think we dodged a bullet with Still. His record didn't end up that good. Let's just say I think his ego needs deflating a little bit, if you ask me. MB about Sean. Yes, up for that. Well, I'll ask Sean if he's up for it. I know he's wanted to have a bit of a break from Sunderland because I'm in a WhatsApp group chat with him, but it would be nice for us to do something like that. John McKenna, I think a manager with successful championship experience is the number one priority. Jim's come back with a couple of comments. Pascal Jansen seems a good fit for me, but Man U haven't managed to get a good manager for over 10 years. No, they haven't, have they? Harry says, yeah, I agree with that. This new guy needs to impress and make up for the 100-day wait. Made it even more difficult for themselves. John McKenna about the championship experience, and I count William Rosenior in that category. Jack's responded saying, I think if we don't get a championship experienced manager, it puts even more pressure to have championship experienced players. Yeah, all fair points. Well, right, so to quickly go through, so Pascal Jansen and Liam Rosenior. Now, just me reading between the lines, because I'm not privileged enough to be in the know with stuff like this. Just me reading between the lines and me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 22 probably. It seems to me like these two are the names now that have been most mentioned: Pascal Jansen and Liam Rosenior. So I'll go through quickly. What I think of each one. So Liam Rosenior. At first, I was against the idea. When I've started to look through a little bit of what he's done at Hull, and the caveat is the team he had really should have got into the top 6. But again, that's saying it from the outside. I don't quite know what the state it was from Hull side of things. More Hull fans, there'll be some Hull fans that thought he was too cautious, but from what I've seen, more Hull fans were gutted that he left. So we'll wait and see with that one. With Liam Rosenior, I think if worst case scenario is Liam Rosenior, then I think we could do a hell of a lot worse than that. I suppose the only issue is if Liam Rosenior was appointed, then he's been out of work for a month now, hasn't he, pretty much? In fact, I think it was exactly a month today that he got sacked from Hull. And the other issue is apparently he plays cautious football, or has been suggested, because apparently one of the reasons that Hull sacked him was because they wanted more from football in different directions, which implies that the football he played was a bit too cautious. And that doesn't suit, and even as someone who's Mr. Clean Sheet wanker, basically, that doesn't suit the players we've got. We want to be able to push on the front foot more. And frankly, even with Clark going, if you get the right recruitment, we should have a team that's capable of dominating a lot of games in the Championship with what we have, because I still stand by it. We do not have a bad side at all. I think it's criminally underachieved by being 16th. But at the same time, Rosenior got 7th with Hull. So you can't turn that, I suppose you can't turn your nose up at that. So really, I do get that Liam Rosenior, I don't think you can say, 101 days to get Rosenior, because Rosenior wasn't available until after the season is over. What you can say is, for about 30 days after that, we could have got Liam Rosenior. But I do believe the Will Still thing is the reason for this delay. So Liam Rosenior, I would be content with. I wouldn't be overjoyed with him, but I would be content with him. I think he would do. I think we could do a lot worse than getting Liam Rosenior. Pascal Jansen. Again, I'm not going to confess to know much about him. I have heard apparently that one flaw about Pascal Jansen, and Yeah, Jim, I'd take either of them, by the way. I'd take Jansen, obviously. My Jansen would be my preferred choice because he seems to be more of a fit for what we want to do in terms of the model or the strategy. Um, my only concern, apparently, is I've heard that apparently tactically sometimes he can be a bit stubborn in games. And that's one thing I really don't like in head coaches when people are stubborn and won't be willing to change during a game. But again, that's just one person's account that I've seen. There was another one. There's a Sunderland fan who lives in the Netherlands, and apparently he said, I can't remember what his name is on Twitter. Yeah, someone will have to correct me on that. Tell me what his name is. But he said he wanted Jansen for the Ajax job. Now, if that's for the Ajax job, then again, if I've read that right, then that's the case, that's a good appointment. That should be a good appointment. If you give me either of them, I'd be pretty content. At worst, I'd be content with Rosinha. I think he's obviously got experience. I think that you can say with Rosinha that his side, when Hull beat us at the Stadium of Light, that was one of the worst opposition displays I've ever seen. But yet they won. But obviously, apparently they were riddled with injuries and had about 10 first teamers out injured that night. So, which makes it more embarrassing that we lost, really. But having said all of that, I think with Rosinha, I think you could do a lot worse. He's got experience. He's done apparently a lot of Rooney's success, really, if you call it that, at Derby. A lot of the good things at Derby under Rooney were down to Rosinha, apparently. Again, everything I'm saying is apparently because I'm not saying it as fact. I don't know for sure. But he did all right at Derby on his own. And then at Hull, he came in when they were like, what, relegation zone, I think, in 22-23, the year we got 6th in the playoffs. And then got them into finishing something like 15th and made them more solid and hard to beat. And apparently he had to do that. Now, here's one example for Liam Rosinha. Get him in and we can get Fabio Carvalho on loan. A player that I've been championing for the last few windows, to be honest, to get. So, yeah, Liam Rosinha, I would definitely take. He's done well at Hull. I think managing Hull and managing Sunderland, again, is a step up. It's not exactly the same size of club, is it? And I do think size of the club does matter. But Liam Rosinha, I do get the impression, would be eager to come here and to prove himself, and at least has shown something at this level. So we'll wait and see. It depends what your expectation is. My expectation would be at minimum to be in the playoffs. I think Liam Rosinha can, but I suppose to be fair, if you're looking at the argument of Liam Rosinha not getting into the top 6 last season, with Ipswich getting second, 2 of those spots were gone to Leeds and Southampton. West Brom and Norwich. Would people say Hull were better than West Brom and Norwich? I'm not 100% sure they are, even with the players that they did have. So I do get a bit of sympathy with that. But there are issues with Rosinha, but at the same time, I wouldn't complain with him. Harry says, quickly, Hull owner said he sacked Rosinha because he was unable to play attacking football. Don't want a negative approach to come along with him. Yeah, that's a fair comment. If he is a negative approach, then unless he's willing to adapt to the players that he has got, then you don't want that, do you really? But yeah, so Rosinha wouldn't complain. Jansen, Jim says the 4-4 draw against Hull wasn't exactly super defensive. No, it wasn't, was it? No, it wasn't. Only 8 goals. Should have been more. But Jansen, I think, based on the profile of him, based on the fact that he seems to be a good fit for what we want, that's probably who you want. Adam says that Jansen. Hello, Adam, by the way. Jansen, hopefully not sure Rosinha can manage with our lack of funds. Right. When it comes to let's quickly go through the rest of the comments before I get into a point about player sales and stuff like that. Let's have a look. Dave Phillips, any Premier League players you would sign for Sunderland that have been released this year? Well, Harry's responded to that with Jaffet Tanganga. I wouldn't complain with that whatsoever. If I'm being honest, probably the signings I'd like us to try and push for are probably ones that are unrealistic. One I'd be looking at is probably Johnny Evans. He's someone I think we should be trying to target. But if Man United are negotiating a new contract with him, is he going to come here? Probably not. In fact, more than likely not. Let's see. Colin, let's hope whoever he comes in brings in 2 proven strikers in with him. The striker thing's got to be sorted. It's just pure negligence if we fail to address that again. Hello, Lauren. How you doing? Patrick Roberts' wife, in other words. So, hello. He's done well at Hull, to be fair. Yes, he did. You're right. He did do well at Hull. I think, again, it comes back down to expectations. I imagine Sunderland in the Championship would have higher, despite being in League One 2 years ago. To be fair, Hull were only promoted a year earlier. So I'd imagine Sunderland should still have higher expectations in and of the Championship than Hull City. Jim says, our squad is valued at more by transfer market if you take out Hull loan players. That's a big thing for Hull. Next season, I do not. Carvalho, Giles, Zavori, Delap, all aren't there. And you've got Greaves and Philogene, who are very good assets, but are they going to keep them? Now, the thing I argue with in terms of lack of funds, to address, who was it the comment that said about lack of funds? Adam, yeah, right. For me, it depends on the player sales, because for me, you've got 7 players. I've said this loads of times. You've got 7 players, in my opinion, who are worth a considerable amount of money in today's market, and certainly for what Sunderland have sold players for in the past. You've got Jack Clarke, the obvious one, Dan Ballard, Dan Neil, Anthony Patterson, Trey Hume, Jobe Bellingham, and here's one that might shock people, but he is still worth money, Pierre Ekwa. Those players, those 7 are all players that you can get a sizable amount of money for. Now, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that at least one big sale is going to happen this summer. Most likely bet is Jack Clarke. I don't think Sunderland will sell more than 2. And I don't want, and truthfully, if we have to lose Jack Clarke, ideally, I don't want to sell any of the others because I want to keep us whoever we want to keep. I want to keep us whoever we can. But I can tolerate it as long as no more. If, say, for example, Clarke and let's say, who's an example? Trey Hume. Let's say Clarke and Hume are sold. You can't sell anyone else then. 1, because of continuity, because you want to have a good amount of continuity there. And 2, because the more players you sell, clubs will be aware that you've got that money, and this is a gamble we're going to have to face even if we just sell 1 asset. But people go, hang on, you've got that money for a target you're wanting. Let's bump up the price a little bit. So, for example, Jack Clarke, Liam Miller, from the lad on loan from Preston, who's at Basel right now. 1 year left on his deal, and he apparently wants to leave, and apparently Basel want to sell him. So, if that is true, what you want is you want him signed before Clarke is sold, because then you've already got his replacement through the door. And ideally, you want someone who's ready to come in now and slot in, even if it's someone who's not as good as what Clarke's level was, but someone who's still a top-end championship player. And I think Liam Miller would provide that. So that's what I'd be saying to that. But in terms of lack of funds, a lot of it does depend on how much money, who is sold, how much money we get for those players, who we end up keeping, obviously, and what happens with the money. This is the crucial bit. What happens with the money when we do sell players? So say, for example, Jack Clarke. Let's say if you got 20 million for him, Tottenham get a quarter of that. So that'll be £15 million in, hypothetically, that you get from the Jack Clarke deal. So in that sense, I'd expect a lot of that to be reinvested directly back into the first team. As I've said before, financial fair play is the thing now. We can't just, unfortunately, we can't go out and just spend and splash money on whatever we want. And I don't think KLD would want to do that anyway. But whether rightly or wrongly, it's up to you. But for me, once you start selling players, and that's money you are earning as a club from revenue coming in from player sales, you've then got no excuse not to go out and invest a lot of that. Even if you don't want to spend a lot of it on transfer fees, if a lot of it goes towards wages for the best free agents or wages for, say, Dan Neil's new contract, which, by the way, needs sorting because he's only got 2 years left, then my point, again, I'm rambling again, I apologise. But my point is, this is where the big sales, this is where the expectation should go up in terms of whether it's just wages or, just fees or wages in terms of spending on the first team squad. So this is where I think you're going to find a lot of, it's going to be a very busy summer based on that alone. So, sorry, Jim Nesbitt says, correction, now 4th behind last 3 relegated clubs. Am I assuming that you're talking about, hang on, are you talking based off the season that finished 23-24, mate? So in other words, behind Leicester, Leeds and Southampton? Or are you talking this coming season? So in other words, you've got Burnley, Luton and Sheffield United coming back down. Hey, Casey, how you doing? Ori Bauer, sorry I'm late missing you. Nah, don't worry. This was a pretty late stream. I can't wait to be back with you lot in August. Absolutely. Absolutely. Be class to see you. Let's have a look. Robert Forster. Championship experience doesn't matter. Kieran McKenna. Fair shout. Good to see you're okay, Acacia. Harry says, can't take for granted that money will be reinvested. Just look at the Ross Stewart deal. This is something I've always contended. And again, it's not a dig at Harry because he raises a fair point. It's, well, right, Harry, if you mean how it's invested, then I agree with you. If you mean that the money was invested in the first place, I can respectfully disagree with that. Because if you look at it, right, so Ross Stewart, we got, what was it, £8 million up front for him. It probably was in installments, but it was an upfront fee, if you know what I mean. Not dependent on clauses and stuff. £8 million. Now, bear in mind, Ross County get 15% of that. 15% of £8 million is 1.2 million. So that's £6.8 million you get for Ross Stewart. We apparently got another £2 million for Southampton winning the playoff final. So that's 8.8 million that we have apparently received for the Ross Stewart deal. Now, people may ask, where's that money gone? I'll tell you exactly where I think it's gone. £2 million on Nazari Rusian. £2 million on Romain Mundell. £2 million combined, I think, on Jansen Seal and Nectar Triantis. Up to £3 million on Jobe Bellingham. £1.5 million on Leo Yelda. So straight away, your money's gone. The money that's gone, if it's gone on the fees, then the money's gone straight away. Again, Harry, please clarify what you meant. If you meant that the money's been reinvested in the first place, then it's your opinion, of course, absolutely. I'll just respectfully disagree with it. If you mean how it's reinvested, then I think that's a very fair point. But we'll wait. But just clarify what you mean, and hopefully I didn't come across as a dick. Let's see. Jim is with transfer market buyers. Right, Jim, sorry. Do you mean, so if you mean this coming season with Burnley, Luton and Sheffield United coming down, you've got to remember Leeds are still in the division as well. But I would imagine we probably are on transfer market. If you're basing it off transfer market, then I would imagine that it's going to be, you're going to be having quite a lot of value assets there. So we probably will have one of the more asseted clubs. That doesn't even make sense. Clubs with more valuable assets in the Championship. Let's have a look. Harry, how it's been reinvested, exactly what I meant. Okay, fair enough then. That's a fair comment. Right, Casey, have you heard that we're putting Chris Rigg's contract on hold until new head coach comes in? Right, Chris Rigg is a funny one because I think Chris Rigg, I think apparently it's that he's holding off the contract. I think it's from his end. Apparently they're holding off the contract until a new head coach comes in, which is fair enough because you want to know who you're going to play for. Jim Nesbitt, table includes Leeds, Leicester and Southampton. Right, so you mean based off the season that finished a few weeks ago with the playoff final. Right, so if you're talking behind Leeds, Leicester and Southampton, then fair enough, that makes more sense. But let's see. Right, let's quickly go through some more comments. Actually, I think we're more or less caught up, I think. Right, Jim Nesbitt, loads of contract extensions, more money. Chris Scott, hello Chris, how are you doing? How many signings do we think we need, assuming we lose one first teamer? If we're assuming that first team is Jack Clarke, which again, I think I'd be gobsmacked if Jack Clarke's here in a few months' time. But let's say that is Jack Clarke being sold. I think you need a replacement for Jack Clarke, even if it's not someone who's on his level that he is currently, someone who's definitely good enough for top-end championship, say top 6 championship now, but will get to Clarke's level with the right development. That's a balancing act. Again, Liam Miller, for example, is someone I'll be wanting to go for in that regard. I think you need a replacement for Jack Clarke. You need at least one, maybe two more ready-made strikers. I think you need a Corey Evans type centre midfielder. Probably two, to be honest, with the fact that Evans is gone. And as much as I really do like Luke O'Nien, I do think that I wouldn't complain if we got another centre back in there. So if you're talking just for the squad, well, let's have a look, because Graham White just put this in here. I still think we need 3 major players: a league-ready striker, a defensive midfielder, and a defender. This is what we've been missing before last season started. I think with the defender, I like Luke O'Nien, but I wouldn't complain if someone like a Johnny Evans came in. It doesn't have to be Johnny Evans, by the way, but someone of that sort of ilk coming in to partner Dan Ballard, assuming we keep Ballard, of course. But if that's what you mean, then fair enough. I agree. I definitely agree on the league-ready striker and defensive midfielder. They are crucial positions we have been banging on about for so long. And if we don't bother to address them adequately this window, then that's just pure negligence on the hierarchy's part. So to answer your question, Chris, I'd say for the squad, half a dozen, I'd say. I think for the starting 11, right, let's say if you take Clarke out of it, if you're looking at the squad right now, what we've got right now that I think is good enough to challenge up there, I'd say Patterson is. I know some people don't like Pato, but I think he's more than good enough. Hume, Ballard. Let's, for argument's sake, put new defender in there. So then we're putting, this is where depending on fitness, Sirkin, ideally, Neil, new midfielder, Jobe. I'd even go as far to say Roberts. I still think Roberts, based on it, I know Roberts has had a shocking season, don't get me wrong. But for me, there's a big difference between having a shocking season and being a shocking player. And I don't think Roberts is that at all. I think Roberts, if we can get him into a rhythm, I think Roberts is more than good enough. Even if he don't provide as many goals and assists, he still can play a big role in the team in the general style of play. So if you're looking at it, that's 7 players now for the starting 11 that I think are still more than good enough to be within that. Obviously, the squad's different because you need more in terms of depth. But this is where I think you need a midfielder, a winger with Clarke going, more than likely, a league-ready striker, and a centre-back. So you could say that's a third of the team that you need, but that's 2/3 of the team that we have already if we keep the assets, obviously. It all depends on how the recruitment goes. I'll give you an example of what I personally would like to see happen, and I might do videos on this in the near future. But if, say, for example, when Jack Clarke does go, a club who I would like him to go to is Leicester for one specific reason: Tom Cannon. Because Tom Cannon, I'm telling you now, I do not think will play much for Leicester in the Premier League. And who I do championship panel show and chats with, said that the reason that Leicester signed him last summer was because they knew that these charges were going to happen against them and could impact their promotion bid. And if they didn't go up, then basically they're screwed. And Tom Cannon is an insurance policy already there. So Tom Cannon for me would make a lot of sense. So if, say, I'll ask people this, right? If, say, Leicester came in with a bid for Jack Clark and they offered between 10 and 12 million with clauses and stuff, or sell-on clauses, but Tom Cannon came here permanently as part of that deal, would people take that? So you get less money for Clark, but it saves you spending a lot of money on another striker. Me personally, and again, it assumes that Tom Cannon will be up for the move. It assumes Leicester want Jack Clark. It assumes, and all parties have to agree to it, obviously. But in that scenario, that is exactly the type of thing I think we should be doing. So if, say, Leicester came in, and apparently Leicester are looking for another winger. So if Leicester come in for Clark, we'd be stupid not to go, right, Tom Cannon, we want him. Even if it was a loan deal. So you want a bit more in terms of a transfer fee. There's so many, just because we don't have as much money, there's so many things you can do there. But let's say if you say 10 million plus Tom Cannon permanently, Spurs would get 2.5 million of that because of the 25% clause. But what you could do with that money is you could buy Liam Miller for, say, maybe 3-4 million. You could then get, you could then use the rest of that for good free agents in the positions we need to strengthen in and get Daniel tied down to a new contract. There's so many, you don't have to go out and splash loads and loads of money. You just have to recruit well. Obviously, forwards is a bit different because it's a premium position. You do have to spend more in terms of that regard. So that's kind of my thought process. I might even go do a video in the near future about maybe what I'd like to see Sunderland do this window and maybe come up with solutions to problems in terms of like players that we go for and so on. But like I say, it's a big, big sort of summer for them. I'm definitely glad I didn't put a time frame on this because we've gone for 40 minutes. I can't believe how quickly this has gone. But right, so last couple of things we'll talk about. So Southampton apparently been linked with Jack Clark. And I think it was Tottenham, Brentford, and Crystal Palace, I want to say, being linked with Jobe Bellingham. We'll start with the Jack Clark thing. Jack Clark, no surprise. Like I've said before, if anyone in the chat is optimistic enough to think that Clark is going to be here, I would love you to be right. But I'd be amazed if Jack Clark is here in this at the end of this summer. At the end of this summer window, if Jack Clark is still a Sunderland player, then I will be gobsmacked, but pleasantly gobsmacked. So I'm not surprised Jack Clark's going to get links across the Premier League and maybe across in Europe as well. So I think Jack Clark is the one we will probably lose. I'll go through another comment. Colin, would you like to see the new manager fetching his own backroom staff? Or are you happy with Dodds and Proctor? Unpopular opinion, I don't mind Dodds as a backroom staff because I think there's clearly a reason, well, not from the club perspective, there's a reason a lot of the players do seem to like Dodds. I think my issue with Dodds, a lot of players seem to view him as Doddsy and one of the lads rather than a leader. So we definitely know for a fact now he's not a head coach. He's not even anywhere near close to being a head coach. But as Dodds as a backroom staff, I don't mind. Proctor can go as far as I'm concerned. But I think with Dodds, I'm not as bothered by him. If he stayed, I'm not bothered. If he left, I'm not as bothered. That's what I'd say to that one. Chris says, who do you see being an option as a replacement for Evans? There's a few players I think who could play in that position. I think, but here's one, and again, this might be an unpopular opinion. Paddy McNair has just left Borough, can play in that position in midfield. I know he's been playing centre-back more for Borough, but can play in that position in midfield. For a free transfer, I think you could do worse. If you want to look at other players, Alan Brown from Preston, if he goes. Dare I say Lewis O'Brien on loan from Forest, possibly? I know if you could believe Transfer Market, apparently Lewis O'Brien can play multiple midfield positions, and that's one of his key positions in defensive midfield or hold midfield. So Lewis O'Brien on loan, I wouldn't complain with. It's got to be someone who's a bit more experienced, though. That's one area I think we definitely need it. Jim says, Jack Clark will go. Hart wants his money. Sad to see him go, but he deserves the opportunity to play at a higher level. Like I said, the only thing I want from Clark at this point is for his manner to be respectful. That's all I pretty much ask for. And for us to get an acceptable fee. As long as those two things happen, then fair play to Jack Clark. He's given us 2 years. We haven't gone up. And I think he deserves a chance in the Premier League or a better level in the Championship. So yeah, I'd agree with you, Jim. I think Jack Clark's gone. I've resigned myself to Clark going. And in some ways, we probably, as much as you don't want to lose Jack Clark, if the money is reinvested adequately, and that's the key bit because we need to see proof that they're going to do that. But if the money is reinvested adequately and it makes the squad better, then sometimes that's a necessary evil, unfortunately. Rob SCFC says, Christian Bielik, please. He's from Birmingham. Is that right? He's at Birmingham right now. So, yeah, wouldn't complain with him. He's someone I think who, with Birmingham's relegation, could be lessened. The price could be lessened on in as far as the window's concerned. So, yeah, thanks, Rob, for confirming. So, yeah. We'll wait and see with that one. I'll ask you guys now, since about 70 of you, well, somehow 70 of you still watching, which is incredible. Thanks very much. And by the way, quickly, if you're watching and you're not a regular subscriber and you think I've earned it from you, hit the subscribe button. It would absolutely mean a lot. What I would say is, would you be interested in me doing videos like I did last summer, where I did videos on 5 players I'd like Sunderland to let go and 5 players I'd like Sunderland to sign? if I'm going to do both videos, I'm going to wait until the head coach is appointed first. But I would like to see. I think those videos could be decent ones, and I might even do a video because I've got like a few strikers in mind who I'd like to see someone go for. But there you go. Graham White says, I can't see Jack staying, but I guess his travels make him feel he's found a home at Sunderland. I'm not an optimist, but it's just hope. I think the problem is that if you keep Jack Clark, well, it's not a problem keeping Jack Clark, that's the wrong way. But if you kept Jack Clark, an issue we're going to find down the line is if you keep him for another year, then in a year's time, he's going to be having 1 year left on his contract, and you'd be lucky to get 10 million probably at that point. So it all depends. Obviously, the gamble is if you keep him and then next season we happen to go up, then that's different because in the Premier League, I could then see him signing a deal with us. But in the Championship, barely anything. And obviously, you've got Ian Hart, who's a muppet, to say the least. So Jack Clark, I do think, wants to be at Sunderland. I think he's found a home at Sunderland. But I think if a bigger opportunity came along, would you begrudge him taking it? I probably wouldn't. But I do get your point, Graham. We'll wait and see. Well, before I get onto the Jobe Bellingham. I get confused. Jobe Bellingham. Before I get onto that stuff, I'll quickly read the last couple of comments. KJ, what do you think about Daniel Jefferson from my club, Sheffield Wednesday, if he doesn't sign a new contract? Do you think he might come to Sunderland as he's a striker? Yeah, Daniel Jefferson's an interesting one. I think in League One, I would have taken him. If I was signing him now, it'd probably be as a squad option, I would think. But for a free transfer, you know, you can't really go wrong, I suppose, can you? He's got a bit more experience of the EFL. Yeah. Okay, so you mean Sheffield United? Yeah, I did that deliberately to see if you were paying attention. But yeah, we know you love Sheffield Wednesday. But yeah, I think Daniel Jefferson, I wouldn't complain. But I think we could. I don't know. It's a weird one. In terms of striker, I mean, one unsung shout for a striker that I could see someone going for is Troy Parrott because he's got a year left on his contract at Tottenham now, and I think he's at 24 now, so he's at an age where I think Tottenham will want to get a bit of money for him. I could see us signing Parrott, for example, for a minimal amount of money, but with a similar to Clark, but with a big future sell-on clause. So we'll wait and see. Let's have a look. Harry says, can't hate Clark for leaving. Think every rational, determined player will be keen to move. Yeah, I think if he wants to, I think he's earned the right to a bigger move. To be fair, I don't think there's many bigger moves in England than Sunderland, but in terms of up the pyramid, there is. Chris Scars, a vid on potential ins and outs will be good. Thanks very much, mate. And thanks to Jim who says, do the vids, Michael. It's nice to see. Angie wants this as well. Fair enough. Thanks very much. It's nice to get non-meltdown doom spiral / conspiracy theory / canon ones. Yeah, fair enough. Terry Ward, get Pritchard back. Pritchard's a weird one. He's one of the situation. He's an example where I blame the club more than I blame Pritchard. Weirdly enough, but I think the way that he left, has probably left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. So yeah, I don't think that would work, Terry, unfortunately. But I do get your point. We did miss him. Casey, I love seeing you do live streams. Bowers, you're amazing at doing it for us fans. No, thanks very much. Right, the Jobe Bellingham thing. I know you said Jude again. Tottenham, Brentford and Crystal Palace have apparently been linked according to a report in The Guardian. In fact, I'll be able to get the exact tweet up now if you give me a moment. While I'm doing that, Chris Scott says, what do you... Glenn says, nice to finally hear the owner speak. Yeah, I agree. I think he needs to do it. I think he needs to do it more often, to be honest. But we shall see. Hang on. Bear me a moment. There was another one. Chris Scott, what do you think about the young West Ham striker? So this is Divin Mbama you're talking about, mate, I think. I could be wrong. No, I think it is Divin Mbama. Bear me a minute. Twitter on my phone's just being an arsehole. Right, okay. So the quote was, very quickly on Mbama, I'm happy with the signing. I will take the signing as long as he's not first choice. I know he's potentially leaving West Ham because he probably wants more game time and stuff like that. But we can't just go into a season with him as our main choice striker because that's really poor from the recruitment team if we do that. But yeah, the quote from Ed Aarons, so that's the bit on Jobe Bellingham, when he said, Sunderland aim to keep Jobe Bellingham amid transfer interest from Premier League and top clubs in Europe. Owner Kyle Louis-Dreyfus particularly keen not to sell Bellingham because he views him as a crucial part of a squad that is aiming for promotion. So if that's the case then, £20 million is, that's a bloody excessive fee, don't get me wrong. An excessive fee, absolutely. What I would say is that fee is overpricing Jobe at the moment, but that's clearly a hands back off, we don't want to sell him fee. And that Guardian report said that Bellingham has apparently got another 4 years left on his current contract, I think. So I'm very much aware that Jobe will obviously attract interest. I don't think Jobe will go this window. But again, I'm saying that as I think because I don't know that. He might still leave. But the good thing, and this is one thing I will defend our recruitment team, particularly Speakman on, is that we are definitely going to be able, if we're selling players, it's going to hopefully be on our terms and for a fee we deem good enough. So Jobe Bellingham, for example, if he's got 4 years left on his deal, then I reckon there's a, there's a good chance we're going to get a considerable fee for him. Actually, I'll ask people this, right? Would you take selling Jobe Bellingham if it meant that Jack Clarke signed a new deal here and stayed longer? Because that's an interesting one, because I want to keep Jobe, because I think in a year's time, I'm telling you, I think next year he'll have a really good season because he's had a full year of a full year of championship football behind him. Hasn't turned 19 yet, and he got 7 goals in his first full season of senior football. So I don't think he's actually done he had a decent first season, I think. And I think next season with a bit more experience, I think he will start to become better as a player for it. But yeah, so Jobe Bellingham, I don't think will go. But obviously, we're going to have players with interest, aren't we? But at least the good thing is we signed them for up to £3 million, I think it was. I think Fabrizio Romano said £3 million. So I think that, as Harry said, Jobe's potential value is much larger. If we're looking for 20 million now, what can we be looking for in a year's time if he's had if he had a good season with us, and at that point we'll have 3 years left on his deal? How much would he be worth then? Glenn Jones says, why can't we keep both? Because it's Sunderland, unfortunately. I just don't see us keeping all of our assets. We're going to sell at least one of them, unfortunately, mate. I wish we could keep all of them. Chris said, Parrot or Cannon and Divin and Bummer would be good for me. Yeah, so I think in a year's time, I think Jobe will be worth a hell of a lot more. And in a year's time, if that Guardian report is right, he'll have 3 years left at that point on his current contract. So that's what I'd say to that one. I do think we'll keep Jobe, but you can never rule anything out. Stephen Pott says, would you try and buy Patrick Bamford from Leeds? Apparently, he's on ridiculous wages at Leeds, I think. I could be wrong there, but we'll wait and see. Let's have a look. But yeah, asking me as a player, yes, I would take Patrick Bamford. Neil Thompson says, have you thought about Lawrence Shankland from the Jambos? He's 28, 29, but is a goal machine in the SPL. Let's just say in the video that I'm looking for with the strikers, or in the videos where I want to sign, he's among the people I'm looking at. But Lawrence Shankland, again, has a year left on his contract at Hearts, and Hearts to Sunderland should be a step up. If it's not, then I'm worried. Jeff says, bring back Thane. I hope Thane's all right, by the way. I had a bit of a disagreement with him on a video the club put out. But Thane's a sound lad. If you're watching this, Thane, you're still a sound bloke. Player says, how come you have a Newcastle quayside mural of the greatest city in the world on the wall behind you? Suspect you're a Geordie, mate. But let's just say I live in a Newcastle household and I didn't decide that. So a bit of the dark side is there. So Jeff says, play to keep the kids off the fire. Jim Nesbitt says, totally agree with you on keeping Jobe. He'll be worth even more in a year's time. Plus, Jude reckons his main position is striker, and he should know. Harry's the place says, shows Gateshead, lad. Yeah, it shows big Gateshead and Newcastle, doesn't it, really? Let's see. Rob, you got to remember that last week Jude was the talk of the town, plus a story about his brother. Would get clicks galore. Yeah, I think the £20 million is heavily accelerated by the surname Bellingham, isn't it? I do think Jude's a great player anyway. But Jobe, I think, will prove to be a very good player in the near future. But like, he will be a lot of the interest will be because of his name. Colin says, probably the first time my year supporting Sunderland, we are now making profits on players. We always buy has-beens, and it ends up costing us a fortune to get rid of them. Graham says, I think I keep Clarke over Bellingham for immediate impact, but yes, Bellingham will be worth in the future. Player says, respect, love your content, keep it up. Thanks very much, mate. Stephen Joe says, still the wrong river. Oh, God. Yeah, right. So, like I said, I would keep Jobe for another year. I think it makes sense. If he's got 4 years left on his contract, why sell him now? You know, for me, I think you could sell him another year and make even more money because you'll still have a long time on his contract at that stage. So if I had to pick another player who I'd probably say, for example, I'll ask one final question before we start to wrap this up. Right, let's assume out of the 7 players I've mentioned before, so you've got Clarke, Neil, Ballard, Pato, Hume, Jobe, and Ekwa. Right. If it's those 7 players, if say Clarke is going to go, because I think it's realistic, Clarke's going to go, out of the other 6 players, if you had to pick one more asset to sell to make up enough funds to significantly impact the squad, but you keep everybody else, who do you pick to keep? I'm telling you now, my answer out of all of that would be Pierre Ekwa. And I like Ekwa, by the way. I don't think he's a crap player at all. But his application this season at times has been a joke. And I think And the frustrating thing is, I know he's capable of better than he's shown. But I think for me, like Ipswich, for example, were loosely linked with Ballard and Equa. And the fee was apparently, what was it, the quoted fee? £8 million combined for the two of them. That's the money you should be getting for Pierre Equa on his own. Because as much as people can say that's overinflated, you got to think he's got 3 years left on his contract. He has got he's got 5 goals from a position of defensive midfield. That will attract interest from people. So I reckon if you sold Clark and Equa and you kept everybody else, if you got a good midfielder to play alongside Dan Neil, like an experienced one, then I actually reckon that you wouldn't. Equa's the one you probably missed the least. So we've got Robin, Stephen, saying Patterson. Fair enough. If we'd have signed Victor Johansson, I would have agreed with that. Chris Goss is definitely Equa. I've got one person agreeing with me at least. Harry, who's your current favourite squad player? Sorry, who's your favourite current squad player? Oh, who's my favourite? Jack Clark's an obvious one. Dan Neil, I'm a big fan of his. Dan Ballard, I love Dan Ballard. Trey Hume, I've grown really fond of. So, yeah, there's quite a few of them. I really still like Patrick Roberts, even though I think technically it's weird because he's one of the best players I've seen play for Sunderland, but his end product's awful, which is probably why he's in the Championship. Let's have a look. Cara, Murphy, Frank Lampard it is. No thanks. Roberts, obviously say, but we'd have to replace Pato because Bishop or Bass are crap. Bishop, yeah, I'm not Bishop against Sheffield. I mean, he's pretty much been signed to be Bass 2.0, hasn't he? Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't sell Pato personally, but that's me. Jim Nesbitt, agree on Equa. We have to keep Pato until Michael Young is ready. Yep, fair shout. Keep Dan Meal, keep Ballard, keep Hume. Yep, I think I'd agree with that. Yeah, this is the thing. So one of the things that we are definitely in a position compared to other parachute teams, sorry, non-parachute clubs, I mean, is the fact that, yes, we're going to lose maybe 1 or 2 assets, but the difference is we should be able, or we better be in a position to be able to reinvest a lot of that money back into the first team. Whereas if you look at, for example, clubs like Hull, I've mentioned them before, I'd be concerned about the state of them there. Not to the point where they go down or anything, but like nowhere near as much as what they probably would be this year with losing a lot of the loan players. Norwich, apparently, I've been told off a couple of Norwich fans, and this is from the Norwich perspective, not mine, that Gunn, Sargent, Rowe, and Sarah, they expect at least one or two of them to leave. It all depends. Apparently, West Brom are close to FFP restrictions, so we'll wait and see. Leeds is a funny one because although they're a parachute team in year 2 parachute payments, apparently they have to sell quite a number of players, or they're going to lose players basically this summer. And the weird thing is with the relegated clubs coming down, I think it was a good thing that Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton came down. Stephen Potts says, where do you think we'll finish this year? A lot of that depends on the window for me. I need to see what we do first. I'm calling it now. If we have a good window, I think we'll finish above Sheffield United. So Jim says, Hull were running a 400k deficit this season. They will be in trouble with FPS. Can't quite see because of the heart emoji thing at the bottom. But yeah, no, so I think Sheffield United, don't think will do as well as people think. Oh, 400k per week, sorry. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. So Hull would probably have to sell an asset to try and make ends meet and not be able to reinvest as much of it. But what I would say is that Sheffield United, I think, have got a lot of problems behind the scenes. I don't think they'll do as well as people might think. They've got like Cameron Archer and Gustavo Hamer, for example, who are 2 top draw players at this level. But I don't like they won't do a Sunderland of 17-18, or they shouldn't. If they do, then goodness me, they deserve to be sectioned. But like they'll be okay in terms of staying up, obviously, but that's not really good enough for a club that's just come down. I don't think they'll do very well. Burnley is very hit and miss for me because they don't have the likes of Harwood, Bellis or Teller now, and Vincent Kompany's got to Bayern Munich. A lot of that depends on who they recruit, obviously, and the head coach themselves, similar to Sunderland. Luton, I think, won't have as much money to spend as people might think for a parachute team because they have got a lot of that money saved for their new ground. But at the same time, they've got a really good top draw core championship squad. But one thing I've noticed about all 3 of Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United, I don't think any of them will be anywhere near as good as what Leeds, Leicester and Southampton have been this season. You've got to remember that last season, Southampton finished 4th on 87 points. Now, yes, Ipswich did superbly, but there's a reason why the 3 relegated clubs all finished in the top 4, and Southampton comfortably finished about 12 points ahead of West Brom in 5th, I think. So that's what I mean. So I think next season, this is why I am begging, and that the hierarchy realise how big this summer is. Next season for me is our chance to try and make us an assault on promotion, and a genuine one at that, for consistently throughout the season. But that depends on how much money is going to be invested in terms of how wisely it's going to be invested. A lot of it depends on who we sell, who we keep, who we sign, how good the head coach is going to be. There's so many factions to consider in this. Oh my God, I can't believe we've been talking for nearly an hour. Right, let's go through the last few comments before we start to wrap it up. Let's see. Terry Jobe Bellingham has been disappointing. Stephen Potts said, Chris Scott, how many left backs do we need given our injury issues? I wouldn't be against it. If an offer came in for one of Elise or Sirkin, I wouldn't be against selling either of them just because of injuries, unfortunately. Rob says, Echo needs to be played further forward. In that deep role, he's too easy to play around. Maybe that's a fair shout. Rob also says, next season, I'm sure it's the lowest amount of teams with parachute payments for a considerable amount of time. We've got the 3 teams coming down, and Leeds are in year 2 parachute payments. I might be wrong here, but I do believe that there's only 2 years left on parachute payments now. So if that's the case, then we've only got 4 teams left on parachute payments. And PRV says, Stephen Joe says, top 2, easy next season. You remind me of that that clip of the lad playing, was it Formula One? Where it's like, easy top 3. Easy top 3, 16th! Which is so hilarious. But yeah, if we could get a top 2 finish, that'd be fantastic. I'd take a playoff finish and win in the playoffs. PR says, I would bring Chertorov, I think. First team, you can help with Russian. I would prefer a Dutch manager. We need to get promoted. Yeah, I think next season promotion has got to be the aim. If it's not the expectation or the aim from the club, then what is the point? Hammer and Smith. Any news on Mubama from us, West Ham? Great potential. As far as I'm aware, mate, nothing. All I've heard is that apparently we are interested in him and we're in for him, but apparently still got talks with you guys, so I don't know how much that is into that. Right, guys, I am going to leave it there, I think. I have Stephen Jones says heart over head there. Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. Heart says at least top 6. My head depends on the window and who we get as head coach. But thanks, guys, for watching. It's much appreciated. We've got 86 people currently watching now. We've gone well over an hour. They're still mad, absolutely. And the support I get is absolutely incredible. So yeah, I will probably do the videos about the 5 players to let go and 5 to sign thing. Because obviously we need to keep content going over during the summer. I'm not as sure if I'm going to do content around England at the Euros. I might do like videos like what the lovely Jamsani tends to do, where you get players in who are, you cover a few topics in one video, something like that. So I might include England games in that. But no, I will do videos in the near future. Sorry, I've had a bit of a break, but quite frankly, with the negativity around the place and with the lack of things going on, it's been pretty demoralizing. I'm not going to lie. But again, I do get it. People aren't going to be positive, are they, really? Not at the moment. So anyway, but thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Jim. No, thanks to everyone who's watched. It's really meant a lot. Like I said, we've got 50 people watching. We've got 50 likes already. Keep the like button. And again, if you're not a regular subscriber and you're still watching this and you think I've earned it, hit the subscribe button. It really doesn't. It's absolutely free. Doesn't cost a penny, as Sean says. And we still need to get that on a T-shirt. Thanks very much, Stephen, to you for the great work. Thanks, Chris. Thank you to every single one of you who's watched. You're all legends. Absolutely top draw. And if you want me to do more live streams like this across the summer, let me know as well, and I'll probably consider doing these if you want to hear my dulcet tones. Take care, guys. And if you want to see more of me, if you haven't put up with me enough for an hour, I'm going on Ants Leicester at the channel Ants Leicester Fan Channel, as in ANT Ants Leicester Fan Channel. We're doing a live watch along waffle of the England game. So yeah, come and join us over there if you want to. But otherwise, have a great evening, whatever you're doing. A great weekend, as Peter's just said. Have a great weekend. Take care, you lovely lot. And stay safe. How are the lads? And let's see if we can finally get a head coach through the door.